A tense podcast confession exposes Jungkook's hidden truth about unspoken love, leaving Jimin shaken as reality blurs with buried feelings. "I think unspoken love is the cruelest kind," Jungkook said into the microphone, his voice steady, but his hands trembled beneath the table. The red recording light blinked like a heartbeat in the dim studio, and for a split second, everything felt too loud: the hum of the air conditioner, the faint buzz in the headphones, the silence that followed his words. Across from him, Jimin stopped breathing. No one else noticed it. The host leaned forward with a smile, intrigued, ready to dig deeper. The staff behind the glass exchanged curious glances, but Jimin lowered his eyes as if the polished wooden table suddenly held all the answers he didn't want to face. Because it felt too close, too precise, too real. Jungkook swallowed, forcing a soft chuckle as if he hadn't just unraveled something fragile. "I mean, it's like carrying a story you're never allowed to tell. It stays with you even when everything else changes." Jimin's fingers curled slightly against his jeans. He remembered that voice, not the one Jungkook used now for the audience, smooth and composed, but the one from late nights, from half-whispered confessions that never fully formed. There had always been something Jungkook didn't say, and Jimin had always been too afraid to ask. The host tilted their head. "Have you ever experienced that kind of love?" The question landed like a spark in dry air. Jungkook hesitated. Just for a second. But Jimin saw it, he always did. In that brief pause, memories rushed in uninvited. The way Jungkook lingered after conversations, the way his gaze softened at moments that didn't seem significant to anyone else, the quiet tension that lived between them like a secret language. Jimin's chest tightened. "Yeah," Jungkook finally said, his voice quieter now, stripped of its earlier ease. "I think I have." The studio felt smaller. Jimin shifted in his seat, forcing a casual expression, but his pulse betrayed him. His thoughts spiraled, dragging him backward through years of almosts and maybes. There was a night on the rooftop, when the city lights blurred into constellations and Jungkook had stood too close, his shoulder brushing against Jimin's. They had talked about everything and nothing, and in the middle of it, Jungkook had gone quiet. "I wonder," he had said back then, staring out into the distance, "if some feelings are meant to stay unsaid." Jimin had laughed it off. Now he wished he hadn't. Back in the studio, the host leaned in further. "Why didn't you say anything?" Jungkook's lips curved into a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because sometimes saying it changes everything, and not always in a good way. The words struck deeper than they should have. Jimin looked up just for a moment. Their eyes met. And in that single glance, something shifted, something fragile and dangerous, like a truth hovering at the edge of existence. Jungkook looked away first. That hurt more than anything. Jimin's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments. Was this about someone else, someone from the past, or... No. He didn't let himself finish that thought. He couldn't. The rest of the recording continued, filled with laughter, lighter questions, and carefully maintained composure. Jungkook returned to his usual charm, answering with ease, deflecting when necessary. But the air between them had changed. It was heavier now, charged with everything that had never been spoken. When the recording finally ended, the red light flickered off, and the room exhaled. Staff members began moving around, chatting, wrapping cables. The host thanked them warmly, already discussing the next episode. Jimin stayed seated. Jungkook stood up slowly, removing his headphones, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them moved toward each other. Then Jungkook took a step. Jimin's heart skipped. "Hey," Jungkook said softly, as if they weren't surrounded by people. "You okay?" Jimin forced a smile, the kind he had perfected over years. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" Jungkook studied him, searching for something beneath the surface. You've been quiet, he said. Jimin shrugged lightly, just tired. It was a lie. They both knew it. Jungkook nodded anyway, as if accepting it was easier than pushing further. You should rest then. The distance between them felt deliberate now. Careful. Controlled. Jimin hated it. Jungkook, he said suddenly, the name slipping out before he could stop it. Jungkook paused. For a second, everything else faded, the noise, the people, the movement. It was just them. Jimin opened his mouth. There were 1,000 things he could say. Questions he had buried, fears he had ignored, truths he had never dared to confront. Was it me? The words hovered at the edge of his lips. But they never came out. Instead, he shook his head slightly. Nothing. Jungkook's expression softened, but there was something else there too, something that looked a lot like disappointment. Okay, he said quietly. And just like that, the moment passed. They walked out of the studio side by side, but not quite together. Outside, the evening air was cool, carrying the distant hum of the city. Lights flickered on one by one, painting the streets in gold and shadow. Jimin glanced at Jungkook, who walked with his hands in his pockets, gaze fixed ahead. So close. And yet, so far. Jimin realized then that unspoken love wasn't just cruel. It was a choice. A quiet, persistent decision to stay silent, even when the truth burned inside you. And maybe, just maybe, they had both been making that same choice all along. But as they disappeared into the night, something lingered between them, unresolved, undeniable, and dangerously real. A story still waiting to be told. The silence in the car was louder than the studio had ever been. Jungkook gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, his knuckles paling under the dim glow of passing streetlights. The city blurred outside, neon reflections stretching across the windshield like fractured thoughts, but neither of them spoke. Jimin sat in the passenger seat, turned slightly toward the window, watching nothing. You're going to keep pretending, Jungkook's voice finally broke through, low but sharp. Jimin didn't turn, pretending about what? A bitter laugh escaped Jungkook. Don't do that, not with me. The car slowed at a red light, the glow painting Jungkook's face in harsh crimson. His jaw clenched, eyes flickering toward Jimin, searching, demanding. You heard what I said back there, Jungkook continued. You reacted, I saw you. Jimin exhaled slowly, his reflection faint in the glass. You're imagining things. I'm not. The light turned green, but Jungkook didn't move for a second too long. A car behind them honked, snapping the moment, and he pressed the gas again, too fast this time. Then say it, Jungkook pushed, his voice tightening. Tell me I'm wrong. Jimin's throat felt dry. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure Jungkook could hear it. You're wrong, he said. It came too quickly. Too rehearsed. Jungkook's grip tightened further. Look at me and say it. Jimin didn't. Jimin. Just drive. The tension snapped. Jungkook pulled the car over abruptly, the tires scraping slightly against the curb. The sudden stop jolted both of them, the world outside momentarily forgotten. Why are you running? Jungkook demanded, turning fully toward him now. Jimin finally faced him, eyes flashing, not with fear, but something far more volatile. Why are you pushing? Jimin shot back. Because you won't answer me. And what do you want to hear? Jimin's voice rose, cracking at the edges. That I overanalyze everything you say, that I take things personally when they're not even about me. Jungkook stared at him, breathing uneven. Was it not about you? The question hung there, heavy and dangerous. Jimin hesitated. That was all the answer Jungkook needed. God, Jungkook muttered, running a hand through his hair. I knew it. Knew what? Jimin challenged, though his voice had lost some of its strength. That you'd do this, Jungkook said, frustration spilling over. That you'd shut down, pretend it's nothing like you always do. Jimin's chest tightened, maybe because it is nothing. Stop lying. I'm not lying. Then why does it feel like you are? The words hit harder than either of them expected. Jimin looked away again, his reflection trembling in the window. You think everything is about you. Jungkook let out a hollow laugh. No, I think some things are about us. That word, us, landed like a shockwave. Jimin's breath caught. Don't, he said quietly. Don't what? Jungkook pressed. Don't say what we've both been avoiding for years. But there is no we, Jungkook. The denial was immediate. Job. And it cut. Jungkook's expression shifted, something wounded flickering across his face before it hardened again. You really believe that? I have to. The honesty slipped out before Jimin could stop it. Silence followed. Not the empty kind, but the kind that carried too much weight, too many truths threatening to surface. Jungkook studied him carefully now, his voice quieter when he spoke again. Why? Jimin's hands trembled slightly in his lap, fingers tightening together. Because if I don't, then everything changes. Maybe it's supposed to. Or maybe it breaks everything, Jimin snapped, the fear finally breaking through. Have you thought about that? Jungkook didn't hesitate, every day. That answer stole the air from Jimin's lungs. Jungkook leaned back slightly, his gaze never leaving Jimin. You think I haven't been scared, that I haven't thought about what could go wrong? Then why? Because I'm more scared of never knowing, Jungkook interrupted, his voice raw now, of pretending this is just normal. Jimin's eyes strung. This is normal, he insisted weakly. No, it's not. Jungkook shook his head. Not the way I look at you, not the way you look at me when you think I don't notice. Jimin froze. You don't get to deny that, Jungkook added, softer now but no less intense. Not when I've seen it. Jimin's defenses were cracking piece by piece. You're making this complicated, he whispered. It is complicated, Jungkook replied, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Jimin laughed, but it came out shaky. Real, what does that even mean for us? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out. Slowly, carefully. His hand hovered for a second before gently wrapping around Jimin's wrist. The contact was electric. Jimin's breath hitched. Tell me it's not real, Jungkook said, his voice barely above a whisper now, and I'll stop. Jimin looked down at their hands. At the way Jungkook's grip was firm, but not forceful, like he was holding onto something fragile. Like he was afraid to lose it. Jimin's heart ached. He could end it here. One sentence. One lie. And everything would go back to the way it was. Safe. Untouched. Unspoken. But his silence was already an answer. Jungkook's fingers tightened slightly, as if he felt it too. See, Jungkook murmured, you can't even say it. Jimin's voice broke when he finally spoke, because if I do, I don't know how to come back from it. Jungkook's expression softened, something vulnerable breaking through his frustration. Maybe we're not supposed to. The world outside felt distant now, like it didn't belong to them anymore. It was just this moment. This truth. This terrifying, undeniable thing between them. Jimin looked up, meeting Jungkook's eyes fully this time. No more avoidance. No more pretending. Just raw, unfiltered honesty. You said unspoken love is cruel, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook nodded. Jimin swallowed hard. Then what does that make us? Jungkook didn't look away. It makes us cowards, he said, unless we choose otherwise. Jimin's heart pounded. Joys. It had always come down to that. And for the first time, standing at the edge of everything they had been avoiding, Jimin realized something that terrified him even more than the truth itself. He didn't want to run anymore. But wanting and doing were two very different things. And as Jungkook's hand slowly slipped from his wrist, leaving behind a lingering warmth that refused to fade, Jimin understood that whatever came next would change them forever. Jimin didn't move when Jungkook's hand slipped away. The absence of warmth felt louder than the argument that had just unfolded, like something vital had been removed too suddenly. The air between them turned cold, sharp enough to cut. Jungkook leaned back in his seat, exhaling slowly, as if he had just said more than he ever intended to. "So what now?" Jimin asked, his voice quieter, but no less intense. Jungkook let out a dry laugh. "You're asking me. You're the one who started this. And you're the one who's been avoiding it." Jungkook shot back immediately. Jimin's jaw tightened. "Maybe because I understand the consequences better than you do." That hit a nerve. Jungkook turned sharply toward him, eyes flashing. "Don't do that. Don't act like I'm being reckless." "You are," Jimin snapped. "You think this is just about feelings. It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me," Jungkook challenged, leaning forward now. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're just scared." Jimin laughed bitterly. "Of course I'm scared." "Of what, me?" "Of everything," Jimin's voice cracked, the frustration finally spilling over. "Of ruining what we have, of making things awkward, of people finding out, of it not working and losing you completely." The words came out faster than he could control, raw and unfiltered. Jungkook froze. For a moment, the anger drained from his face, replaced by something softer, something heavier. "You think I haven't thought about that," he said quietly. Jimin shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "Not like I have." "And how do you know that?" Jungkook pressed. "Because you're willing to risk it," Jimin replied, his voice trembling. "And I'm not." Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with everything they had just laid bare. Jungkook looked at him for a long moment, studying every flicker of doubt, every trace of fear. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "Or is it just that you don't feel the same way?" Jimin's breath caught. There it was. The one question he had been avoiding from the very beginning. Jungkook didn't look away, because if that's the truth, just say it. Jimin opened his mouth. But nothing came out. His silence stretched too long. Jungkook's expression shifted, the vulnerability from before slowly hardening into something guarded. "Right," Jungkook muttered, looking away. "That's what I thought." "No," Jimin said quickly, reaching out without thinking, his fingers brushing against Jungkook's sleeve. "That's not." "Then what is it?" Jungkook pulled back slightly, not completely, but enough to create distance. "Because I'm done guessing, Jimin." Jimin's chest tightened painfully. "I do feel something," he admitted, the words barely audible. "I just don't know what to do with it." Jungkook let out a sharp breath, somewhere between relief and frustration. "You don't have to do anything, just stop pretending it's not there." "But acknowledging it makes it real," Jimin said, his voice shaking. "And once it's real, we can't take it back." Jungkook leaned closer again, his gaze intense. "Why would we want to?" Jimin looked at him like he didn't recognize him. "Because not everything is meant to happen," Jimin whispered. "That's not an answer," Jungkook said firmly. "It is to me." Jungkook shook his head, disbelief evident. "You're unbelievable." "And you're impulsive," Jimin fired back. "At least I'm honest." "That doesn't make you right." Their voices rose again, tension snapping back into place, like a stretched wire ready to break. Jungkook's patience finally cracked. "You think hiding is the right choice? You think pretending we're just fine like this is better?" "Yes," Jimin said, almost desperately, "because at least we still have each other this way." Jungkook went still. The words lingered, heavy and fragile. "Do we?" Jungkook asked quietly. Jimin faltered. "What?" "Do we still have each other?" Jungkook repeated, his voice steady but cold, because it doesn't feel like it. That hurt, more than anything else. Jimin's defenses wavered. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is you deciding for both of us, Jungkook replied. You're so focused on what could go wrong that you're ignoring what's already happening. And what is that? Jimin demanded. Jungkook didn't hesitate. We are drifting. The word landed like a blow. Jimin shook his head immediately. No, we're not. We are, Jungkook insisted. You don't see it because you're too busy avoiding the truth. I'm protecting what matters. And I'm trying to save it. Their voices collided, neither willing to back down. The car felt suffocating now, the space too small for everything they were trying to contain. Jimin pushed the door open suddenly. I need air, he muttered, stepping out before Jungkook could respond. The cool night hit him instantly, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside him. He paced a few steps away from the car, running both hands through his hair, trying to steady his breathing. Behind him, the car door opened. Running again, Jungkook's voice followed, quieter now but still edged with frustration. Jimin turned sharply. I'm not running. Then stop walking away. I just need a second. And I need you to stop shutting me out. Jungkook stepped closer, closing the distance between them. They stood there under the dim streetlight, shadows stretching long across the pavement. You think this is easy for me? Jungkook continued, his voice lower now, more controlled, but no less intense. You think saying all of this doesn't terrify me? Jimin hesitated. I just don't show it the same way you do, Jungkook added. Jimin's gaze softened just slightly. Then why now? The question lingered. Jungkook looked up at the night sky briefly before answering. Because I almost lost you without ever saying anything. Jimin frowned. What are you talking about? Jungkook met his eyes again. You don't remember. Jimin searched his face, confused. Jungkook let out a quiet breath. That night, when you said you were thinking about leaving, about taking a break from everything. Jimin's expression shifted. He remembered. I realized something then, Jungkook continued. If you walked away, I'd have to live with never telling you, and that felt worse than anything else. Jimin's chest tightened. So I decided I'd rather risk losing you by being honest than lose you while lying to myself. The honesty in his voice was almost unbearable. Jimin looked down, his thoughts spiraling. You always do this, Jimin said softly. Do what? Make it sound so simple. Jungkook shook his head. It's not simple, it's just clear to me. Jimin laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. I wish it was clear to me too. Jungkook stepped closer again, his voice dropping. Then stop overthinking and just tell me one thing. Jimin looked up. Jungkook held his gaze, unwavering. When you heard me in that studio, when I talked about unspoken love, he said slowly, were you thinking about me? Jimin's heart pounded violently. The world seemed to hold its breath. This was it. No more deflection. No more hiding. Just the truth. Jimin's lips parted. And for the first time, he didn't look away. Yes, he said. The word was soft. But it changed everything. Jungkook's breath caught, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly, like he had been holding that question for far too long. Neither of them spoke after that. Because they both understood. There was no going back now. Only forward. Into whatever this was. Into whatever they were becoming. Yes. The word didn't echo, didn't shatter the world the way Jimin had always imagined it would. It simply settled between them, heavy, undeniable, irreversible. Jungkook didn't move at first. His eyes searched Jimin's face like he was trying to confirm that he had heard correctly, that this wasn't another half-truth or something that would be taken back in the next breath. You mean that? Jungkook asked, his voice quieter now, stripped of all the earlier sharpness. Jimin nodded, his throat tight. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't. Jungkook exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. For a brief moment, he looked overwhelmed, not triumphant, not relieved, but something far more complicated. Say it again, Jungkook murmured. Jimin blinked. What? Say it again, Jungkook repeated, stepping closer. I need to hear it without you hesitating. Jimin hesitated anyway. Not because he didn't mean it, but because saying it once had already unraveled something inside him. Saying it again felt like stepping off a ledge. But Jungkook didn't look away. He waited. So Jimin forced himself to hold his gaze. When you talked about unspoken love, Jimin said slowly, each word deliberate, I was thinking about you. Jungkook closed his eyes briefly, like the words physically hit him. A shaky breath escaped him. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for you to admit that? Jungkook asked, almost under his breath. Jimin let out a quiet, almost humorless laugh. Do you have any idea how long I've been trying not to? That pulled a faint smile from Jungkook, but it didn't last. Because reality was already creeping back in. And now what? Jimin asked, the fear returning, threading through his voice again. We say it out loud, and suddenly everything's supposed to make sense. Jungkook shook his head. No, nothing makes sense. Exactly, Jimin said quickly, latching onto that. That's the problem. No, Jungkook countered, his voice firm again. The problem is you think things only have value if they're safe. Jimin frowned, and you think they do. I think some things are worth the risk, Jungkook replied. Jimin's chest tightened, and what if this is? Jungkook stepped even closer, close enough that Jimin could feel his breath, steady but heavy. Then we deal with it, Jungkook said, together. The word lingered. Together. It sounded so simple. Too simple. Jimin shook his head slightly. You keep saying that like it guarantees something. It doesn't, Jungkook admitted, but neither does pretending. Jimin looked away, his thoughts spiraling again. You don't understand, he said quietly. If this goes wrong, we don't just lose this, we lose everything. Jungkook's expression hardened slightly. You mean we lose the version of us that's already falling apart? That's not true, Jimin snapped, but the conviction wasn't fully there. Jungkook caught it. That's exactly what I mean, Jungkook said. You think we're fine, but we're not. We haven't been for a while. Jimin's stomach twisted. So this is your solution, blow everything up and hope it turns into something better. No, Jungkook said. This is me refusing to keep lying to myself. Jimin laughed bitterly. And what about me? What if I'm not ready for that? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied Jimin carefully, like he was trying to see past the fear, past the walls Jimin had built so carefully over time. Then be honest about that too, Jungkook said finally. Jimin blinked. I just was. No, Jungkook shook his head. You admitted you feel something. That's not the same as being honest about what you want. Jimin froze. Because that was the question he had been avoiding even more than the others. What did he want? I don't know, Jimin admitted, his voice quieter now. Jungkook nodded slowly. At least that's real. Jimin let out a shaky breath. I wish it wasn't this complicated. Jungkook let out a soft laugh, but there was no humor in it. It was always going to be. The night stretched around them, quiet but charged. Jimin crossed his arms, more to ground himself than anything else. So what are you saying, that we just try? I'm saying we stop pretending this is nothing, Jungkook replied. And if it turns into something we can't handle? Jungkook met his eyes. Then we face it. You make it sound easy. It's not, Jungkook said again, more firmly this time, but neither is this. He gestured vaguely between them. Jimin followed the motion, his chest tightening again. "Do you ever think about how this looks?" Jimin asked suddenly, his voice dropping. "If anyone found out, if people started asking questions." Jungkook's expression darkened slightly. "So this is about what other people think?" "It's not just that," Jimin insisted. "It's everything. Expectations, pressure, the way people see us." "I don't care about that," Jungkook interrupted. "Well, I do," Jimin snapped. The words came out sharper than he intended. Jungkook flinched slightly, not from the volume, but from what it meant. "Right," Jungkook said quietly, "of course you do." Jimin immediately regretted the way it sounded. I didn't mean it like that." "But you did," Jungkook said, his voice calm now, almost too calm. "You care more about keeping things the way they are than about what this could be." "That's not fair," Jimin said, his voice softening. "I care about us." "So do I," Jungkook replied. "That's why I'm standing here." The weight of that statement settled heavily between them. Jimin's defenses were starting to crumble, but the fear was still there, gripping him tightly. "You're asking me to take a risk I don't know how to take," Jimin admitted. Jungkook stepped closer again, but this time slower, more careful. "I'm not asking you to have all the answers," Jungkook said quietly. "I'm asking you to stop running from the question." Jimin looked at him, really looked at him. At the determination in his eyes. At the vulnerability he wasn't even trying to hide anymore. It was terrifying. And strangely grounding. "What if I mess this up?" Jimin whispered. Jungkook's expression softened. "Then we mess it up together," he said. Jimin let out a shaky breath, something inside him finally giving way. "You're impossible," Jimin muttered. Jungkook smirked faintly. "You've known that for years." Despite everything, Jimin found himself almost smiling. Almost. But the tension was still there, thick and unresolved. "So what now?" Jimin asked again, but this time it sounded different. Less like resistance. More like uncertainty. Jungkook hesitated for the first time. Not because he didn't know what he wanted, but because this was the moment where everything could change. "I don't want to rush you," Jungkook said slowly, "but I don't want to go back to pretending either." Jimin nodded faintly. "Neither do I." The admission felt strange. "New. And I don't want this to stay unfinished," Jungkook added. Jimin's heart skipped. Unfinished. Jungkook held his gaze, something intense flickering there again. "Yeah," he said quietly. Before Jimin could react, Jungkook closed the distance. It wasn't sudden, not entirely. But it wasn't hesitant either. It was deliberate. Careful. Like he was giving Jimin just enough time to pull away. Jimin didn't. His breath caught as Jungkook's hand brushed lightly against his arm again, grounding him in the moment. Everything slowed. The city noise faded. The world narrowed to the space between them. "Tell me to stop," Jungkook murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Jimin couldn't. Didn't. And that was all Jungkook needed. The space between them disappeared. And in that fragile, terrifying, undeniable moment, everything they had left unspoken finally found its way into something real. The kiss didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like something that had been waiting, quietly, painfully, for far too long. Jimin's mind went blank the second Jungkook closed the distance, but his body reacted before his thoughts could catch up. His fingers instinctively curled into the fabric of Jungkook's jacket, gripping like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Jungkook hesitated for a fraction of a second against him, like he was still giving Jimin a chance to pull away. Jimin didn't. That was all it took. The restraint shattered. Jungkook's hand moved from Jimin's arm to his waist, pulling him closer, firm but not forceful. The kiss deepened, no longer tentative, no longer questioning. It was everything they hadn't said, everything they had been holding back. And it was overwhelming. Jimin's heart pounded violently, his chest tight with something dangerously close to panic. This is real. The thought hit him too hard. Too fast. He pulled back abruptly. The sudden break left both of them breathless. Jungkook blinked, disoriented, his hand still hovering near Jimin like he wasn't ready to let go completely. Jimin! I can't, Jimin said quickly, his voice shaking. He stepped back, putting distance between them like it might slow his racing thoughts. Jungkook frowned, confusion flickering into frustration. What do you mean you can't? Jimin ran a hand through his hair, packing a step away. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Jungkook's expression hardened slightly. So you regret it? No, Jimin snapped, too fast, too loud. He paused, swallowing hard. No, it's not that. Then what? Jungkook demanded. Jimin looked at him, eyes conflicted, almost desperate. It's too much. Jungkook let out a disbelieving laugh. Too much, we barely even. It's not just the kiss, Jimin cut him off. It's everything that comes with it. Jungkook stared at him, searching his face again like he was trying to find something that made sense. You said you didn't want to pretend anymore, Jungkook said slowly. So why does it feel like you're already trying to take it back? I'm not taking it back, Jimin insisted, his voice softer now but still strained. I need time to process this. Jungkook shook his head, stepping closer again. Process what? You already admitted how you feel. And that doesn't magically fix everything, Jimin shot back. Jungkook's patience started to crack again. I'm not asking it to fix everything, Jimin. I'm asking you to stop acting like this is a mistake. I didn't say it was a mistake. You're acting like it is. I'm acting like it's complicated, Jimin's voice rose again. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be. Jimin laughed bitterly, stepping back again. You keep saying that like it's true. It is true, Jungkook insisted. No, it's not, Jimin said, shaking his head. You just don't want to see the complications. Jungkook's jaw tightened, then make me see them. Jimin hesitated. There it was again, that moment where he had to choose between holding back and saying too much. You want the truth? Jimin asked quietly. Jungkook didn't hesitate, always. Jimin took a slow breath, steadying himself. If this becomes something real, Jimin began, his voice trembling slightly, we don't get to just exist quietly. People will notice. They'll question everything. Every interaction, every glance, it'll all mean something different. Jungkook listened, his expression unreadable. And if it goes wrong, Jimin continued, we can't just walk away like nothing happened. We'll be stuck dealing with it every day in front of everyone. Jungkook nodded slowly, okay. Jimin blinked, okay. That's it, Jungkook said. That's what's been scaring you this whole time. Jimin frowned. You say that like it's nothing. It's not nothing, Jungkook admitted, but it's not enough to make me walk away. Jimin stared at him. You're not hearing me. No, I am, Jungkook replied. I just don't agree with you. Jimin let out a frustrated breath. Of course you don't. Because I think you're using all of that as an excuse, Jungkook said bluntly. Jimin froze. That's not fair, he said quietly. Isn't it? Jungkook challenged. You're so focused on what could happen that you're ignoring what already did. Jimin's chest tightened. And what exactly is that? Jungkook stepped closer again, his voice dropping. You kiss me back. The words hit harder than expected. Jimin's breath faltered. You didn't hesitate, Jungkook continued, not until after. Jimin looked away, unable to deny it. Because in that moment, Jungkook said softly, you weren't thinking about consequences, you were just feeling it. Jimin's silence confirmed everything. Jungkook let out a quiet breath, so don't tell me this is all about logic. Jimin's defenses weakened further. but he wasn't ready to give in completely. I'm not like you, Jimin said. I can't just jump into something and hope it works out. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. You think that's what I'm doing? Isn't it? Jungkook shook his head. No, I've thought about this more than you realize. Jimin frowned. Then why does it feel like you're rushing me? Because I've already been waiting, Jungkook replied, his voice quiet but firm, for a long time. That softened something in Jimin's expression. How long? Jimin asked before he could stop himself. Jungkook hesitated. For the first time since this started, he looked uncertain. Long enough that I'm tired of pretending it's not there, he said. Jimin stuttered him, trying to read between the lines. You're not telling me everything, Jimin said slowly. Jungkook looked away. That was answer enough. Jimin's chest tightened again. What are you hiding? Jungkook exhaled, running a hand through his hair. It's not. Jungkook. The way Jimin said his name stopped him. It wasn't demanding. It was something else. Something softer but heavier. Jungkook hesitated, then finally spoke. There was a point where I thought you knew, he admitted. Jimin frowned. Knew what? Jungkook glanced at him, then away again. How I felt. Jimin blinked. When? Jungkook laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. That's the problem. I don't know. I thought I was being obvious. Jimin's mind raced, flipping through memories, searching for something he might have missed. You weren't, Jimin said. Jungkook nodded faintly. Yeah, I figured that out eventually. Jimin's chest felt tight again, but for a different reason now. How long, Jungkook? He asked again, more firmly this time. Jungkook met his eyes. And for once, he didn't deflect. Before you ever started questioning it, Jungkook said. The implication hit hard. Jimin's breath caught. You mean? Yes, Jungkook said quietly. The realization crashed over Jimin like a wave. All those moments, all those almosts, they hadn't been imagined. Jimin took a step back, trying to process it. Why didn't you say anything? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. For the same reason you didn't. Fear. Jimin understood that too well. But something changed, Jimin said. Jungkook nodded. You almost left. The memory hit again, sharper this time. And I realized I couldn't keep doing that, Jungkook continued. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with just whatever this was. Jimin looked down. His thoughts spinning out of control. Everything felt different now. Bigger. More real than he had allowed himself to believe. I need time, Jimin said again, but this time it sounded less like a defense and more like a plea. Jungkook studied him carefully. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. Jimin looked up, surprised. Okay, he repeated. Jungkook shrugged slightly, though his expression was still serious. I meant what I said earlier, I'm not going to force you. Jimin's chest tightened, but you're not going to pretend either. Jungkook shook his head. No. Jimin nodded slowly. The tension didn't disappear. If anything, it felt heavier now. But it was different. More honest. More dangerous. Jungkook stepped back, putting just enough distance between them. But don't take too long, he added quietly. Jimin frowned. Why? Jungkook met his eyes, something unreadable flickering there. Because I don't know how long I can stand still while you figure it out. The words lingered long after he said them. And as the silence returned, thicker than ever, Jimin realized something that unsettled him more than anything else. Time wasn't just something he needed. It was something he might be running out of. The next morning didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like the aftermath of something that hadn't fully exploded yet. Jimin woke up before his alarm, his chest already tight, his mind replaying everything from the night before in sharp, unforgiving detail. The kiss, the argument, the confession, Jungkook's voice telling him not to take too long. Time. The word lingered like a warning. He sat up slowly, pressing his palms against his eyes as if he could block it all out, but it didn't work. The feelings were still there, heavier now, more real. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Jimin hesitated before picking it up. One message. From Jungkook. I meant what I said, but I won't push you today, just don't disappear. Jimin stared at the screen for a long moment. Don't disappear. A small, bitter smile tugged at his lips. Too late for that. Because he already felt like he was slipping somewhere in between what he wanted and what he was afraid to lose. He typed a reply, erased it, typed again, erased it again. Finally, he locked the screen without sending anything. Coward. The word echoed in his mind, uninvited. The day moved forward anyway. Schedules, rehearsals, people talking, laughter that felt too loud and too normal for something that had shifted so drastically beneath the surface. Jimin kept his distance. Not obviously, not enough for anyone else to notice. But Jungkook noticed. Of course he did. Every time Jimin avoided standing too close, every time he redirected a conversation, every time his gaze lingered for a second too long before pulling away. Jungkook saw all of it, and it was starting to wear on him. By the time evening came, the tension had built into something suffocating. It snapped backstage. Are you seriously going to ignore me all day? Jungkook's voice was low but sharp as he cornered Jimin near the dressing area, away from the others. Jimin froze for a second before turning around, his expression carefully neutral. I'm not ignoring you. Jungkook scoffed. Right, because this, he gestured between them, this is totally normal. Jimin crossed his arms, trying to steady himself. We're at work, Jungkook. So what? Jungkook shot back. We've always talked before. Before was different. The words slipped out too quickly. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Different how? Jimin hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Say it, Jungkook pressed. Jimin exhaled slowly. Before we didn't complicate things. Jungkook let out a hollow laugh. You mean before we stopped lying to ourselves? Jimin's jaw tightened. You keep calling it that, but maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe it was just easier. Easier doesn't mean right. And harder doesn't mean better, Jimin snapped. The tension flared instantly, sharp and volatile. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice dropping. So what are you saying, that you want to go back to pretending nothing happened? Jimin didn't answer immediately. Because he didn't know. And that uncertainty showed. Jungkook shook his head, frustration clear. You said you needed time, not distance. I didn't say I wouldn't need space, Jimin replied, quieter now, but still defensive. Space, Jungkook repeated. This isn't space, Jimin, this is you shutting me out. I'm not shutting you out. Then why does it feel like you are? The question hit hard. Jimin looked away, his chest tightening again. I just need to think, he said. And you can't think with me around, Jungkook asked, his voice softer now but edged with something hurt. That's not what I meant. Then explain it better. Jimin ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Jungkook's expression shifted. No, you're the one doing that. Jimin laughed bitterly. Of course you'd say that. Because it's true, Jungkook said firmly. You're acting like this is something we can just put on hold. And you're acting like it's something we have to figure out immediately. Because I don't want to lose this. The words came out louder than intended. Jimin blinked, caught off guard by the rawness in Jungkook's voice. "You're not losing anything," Jimin said quickly. Jungkook shook his head. "That's not how it feels." Jimin's chest tightened. "Then what does it feel like?" Jungkook hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he answered honestly. "It feels like I finally got you to be honest with me, and now you're pulling away again." The words landed heavier than anything else. Jimin's defenses faltered. "That's not what I'm trying to do," he said, his voice softer now. "Then what are you trying to do?" Jungkook asked. Jimin struggled to answer. Because the truth was messy, complicated, and he didn't fully understand it himself. "I'm trying to not mess this up," Jimin said finally. Jungkook exhaled sharply. "By avoiding it. By not rushing into something I'm not ready for," Jimin corrected. Jungkook studied him for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. "Then when will you be ready?" he asked quietly. Jimin froze. Because he didn't have an answer. Jungkook noticed immediately. "Exactly," he muttered, looking away. "That doesn't mean never," Jimin said quickly. "It doesn't mean soon either," Jungkook replied. The tension thickened again, but this time it felt different. Less explosive. More fragile. Like something was starting to crack in a way that couldn't be fixed with another argument. Jimin took a small step forward. "Jungkook." "I'm tired," Jungkook interrupted quietly. Jimin stopped. Not because of the words, but because of the way Jungkook said them. Not angry. Not frustrated. Just exhausted. "I'm tired of feeling like I'm the only one standing still," Jungkook continued. "Like I'm the only one willing to face this." "That's not fair," Jimin said softly. "Maybe not," Jungkook admitted, "but it's how it feels." Jimin swallowed hard. "I told you I wouldn't push you," Jungkook went on, "and I meant it." Jimin nodded faintly. "But that doesn't mean I'll wait forever." The words weren't harsh. They weren't even said with anger. But they hit harder than anything else. Jimin felt it in his chest, sharp and immediate. "You're giving up?" Jimin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook shook his head. "No." He looked at Jimin again, his gaze steady but distant. "I'm just not going to keep chasing something you're afraid to reach for." That hurt. More than Jimin expected. "I'm not afraid to reach for it," Jimin said, though his voice lacked conviction. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. "Then prove it." Jimin opened his mouth. But nothing came out. Because he didn't know how. Jungkook let out a quiet breath, something final in the sound. "Yeah," he said softly, "that's what I thought." Jimin's chest tightened painfully. "Jungkook." "I mean it," Jungkook said, cutting him off gently this time. "Take your time, figure it out." Jimin's throat felt dry. "And you?" Jungkook hesitated. Just for a moment. Then he gave a small, almost sad smile. "I'll figure out how to stop hopping, you'll choose me." The words landed like a blow. Jimin felt it immediately, his breath catching, his chest tightening painfully. "That's not fair," Jimin said, his voice breaking slightly. Jungkook shrugged faintly. "Neither is this." And with that, he stepped back. Not far, but far enough. The distance felt different this time. Not uncertain. Not temporary. Intentional. Final. Jimin stood there, frozen, watching as Jungkook turned away. Disappearing into the noise and movement backstage, like nothing had just shattered between them. But everything had. And for the first time since this started, Jimin felt something worse than fear. He felt the very real possibility that he had waited too long. And that this time, Jungkook might actually let go. Jimin didn't remember how he made it through the performance. The lights had been blinding, the music too loud, the cheers distant and distorted like they belonged to another world entirely. His body moved on instinct, years of discipline carrying him through every step, every expression, but his mind was somewhere else. Stuck on Jungkook's voice. "I'll figure out how to stop hopping, you'll choose me." It echoed over and over, louder than the music, sharper than the applause. And the worst part, Jimin knew Jungkook meant it. Backstage after the performance was chaos. Staff rushing, voices overlapping, congratulations flying around, but none of it reached him. Jimin moved through it like a ghost, his chest tight, his thoughts spiraling. He spotted Jungkook across the room. Laughing, talking to someone, acting normal. That shouldn't have hurt. But it did. Because just hours ago, Jungkook had looked at him like everything was at stake. And now it looked like he was already letting go. Jimin felt something twist painfully inside him. He turned away, but he couldn't stop himself from glancing back again. Jungkook wasn't looking at him. Not once. That was new. That was wrong. And it unsettled Jimin more than anything else. He pushed through the crowd, needing air, needing space, but mostly he needed to stop feeling like he was already too late. The hallway outside was quieter, the noise fading behind him. Jimin leaned against the wall, pressing his palm against his chest, as if he could physically steady his racing heart. Running again. The voice hit him before he could even process it. Jimin looked up. Jungkook stood a few steps away, his expression unreadable, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were anything but. Jimin straightened immediately. "I needed a break." Jungkook nodded faintly. "Of course you did." There was no bite in his tone. No anger. And somehow that felt worse. Jimin frowned. "Why do you sound like that?" "Like what?" Jungkook asked calmly. "Like you've already decided something." Jungkook tilted his head slightly, studying him. "Maybe I have." Jimin's chest tightened. "About what?" Jungkook took a step closer, slow and deliberate. "About not putting myself in a position where I'm the only one holding on." The words were calm, controlled, but they hit like a punch. Jimin swallowed hard. "You think that's what this is?" "I think that's what it's been feeling like," Jungkook replied. Jimin shook his head quickly. "That's not fair." Jungkook let out a quiet breath. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Jimin's voice rose slightly, frustration breaking through again. "You're acting like I don't care, like I'm just avoiding everything for no reason." "Then give me a reason," Jungkook said. Jimin opened his mouth, but the words tangled again. Jungkook watched it happen. Watched him hesitate. Again. Something flickered across Jungkook's face. Not anger. Not frustration. Something quieter. Something that looked dangerously close to resignation. "That's what I thought," Jungkook murmured. "No," Jimin said quickly, stepping forward. "Stop saying that like you already know what I'm thinking. Then prove me wrong." "I'm trying." "Are you?" Jungkook challenged, his voice still calm but sharper now. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're just stalling." Jimin's jaw tightened. "You don't get to decide that. And you don't get to keep me waiting while you figure out whether I'm worth the risk," Jungkook shot back. The words landed harder than anything else. Jimin froze. "That's not what this is," he said quietly. "Then what is it?" Jungkook pressed. Jimin shook his head, his voice cracking slightly. "Why does it feel like no matter what I say, it's not enough for you?" Jungkook blinked, caught off guard for the first time. "Because you're not saying anything," Jungkook replied, softer now but still firm. "Not the things that matter." Jimin's chest tightened painfully. "You want me to say I choose you?" Jimin asked suddenly, his voice trembling. Is that what you want? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. That silence was louder than any response. Jimin let out a shaky breath. I can't just say that like it's easy. I didn't say it was easy, Jungkook replied. Then why does it feel like you're demanding it? Jimin shot back. Because I need to know where I stand, Jungkook said, his voice rising slightly for the first time. I need to know I'm not the only one willing to fight for this. Jimin laughed bitterly. Fight for what? Something we don't even understand yet. For something we both feel, Jungkook corrected. Jimin shook his head, feeling something isn't enough. It is if you're brave enough to follow it. And what if I'm not? Jimin challenged, his voice breaking slightly. Jungkook went still. The question lingered. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Honest. Jungkook's gaze softened, but there was something else there too, something guarded. Then at least admit that, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin's breath caught. I am admitting it, Jimin said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared, Jungkook. Jungkook nodded slowly. I know. Then why is that enough for you? Jimin asked, his eyes searching desperately now. Why do I have to be fearless for this to work? You don't, Jungkook said. You just have to be willing. Jimin swallowed hard. I am willing. Then show me. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Expectation. Jimin hesitated again. And that hesitation, that tiny, almost invisible pause, it broke something. Jungkook stepped back. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but with a quiet finality that made Jimin's chest tighten painfully. Yeah, Jungkook said softly, that's what I thought. Stop saying that, Jimin snapped, stepping forward again. You keep acting like you already have the answer, like you're not even giving me a chance. I gave you a chance, Jungkook replied, his voice calm again. I gave you a lot of chances. Jimin froze. That's not. It is, Jungkook interrupted gently. You just didn't take them. The truth in his voice was undeniable. And it hurt. Jimin's defenses crumbled further, his voice quieter now. I didn't realize. I know, Jungkook said. That made it worse. Jimin looked at him, his chest tightening with something dangerously close to panic. So what now? Jungkook hesitated. And for the first time, he looked unsure. Now, Jungkook said slowly, I stopped pushing. Jimin's heart dropped, and I let you figure it out on your own, Jungkook finished. Jimin shook his head immediately. That's not what I want. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. Then what do you want? Jimin opened his mouth. And this time, the answer came out before he could stop it. I want you. The words hung in the air. Raw. Unfiltered. Irreversible. Jungkook's eyes widened slightly, caught off guard. Jimin's breath came fast, his chest rising and falling unevenly. I just don't know how to have you without losing everything else. Jungkook stared at him, something shifting again in his expression. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. You don't have to have all the answers, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin shook his head, but I need to know we won't regret this. Jungkook let out a soft, almost helpless laugh. We might. Jimin blinked. That's not reassuring. It's honest, Jungkook replied. There's no version of this where there's zero risk. Jimin's chest tightened again. I hate that, he muttered. I know, Jungkook said. Silence settled between them again, but it felt different now. Less like distance. More like something building. Jungkook stepped closer again, slower this time, more careful. But I also know this, Jungkook added, his voice softer now. I'd regret not trying more than I'd regret failing. Jimin looked at him, really looked at him. At the sincerity. at the vulnerability, at the quiet strength behind his words. And something inside him shifted. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. I don't know how to do this, Jimin admitted. Jungkook nodded, then we figure it out. Jimin hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out. His fingers brushed against Jungkook's hand, tentative, uncertain. But this time, he didn't pull away. Jungkook's breath caught slightly, but he didn't move too quickly, didn't rush the moment. He just let it happen. Let Jimin close the distance in his own time. And when Jimin's fingers finally intertwined with his, it felt different. Not like a question, not like a mistake, but like a choice. A real one. Jimin exhaled slowly, his grip tightening just slightly. I'm still scared. Jungkook squeezed his hand gently. So am I. Jimin glanced at him, surprised. Jungkook gave a faint smile. I'm just better at pretending I'm not. Jimin huffed out a quiet laugh, the tension easing just a fraction. Don't make me regret this, Jimin murmured. Jungkook's expression softened, something warm and steady settling in his gaze. I won't, he said. And for the first time, since everything had started unraveling. Jimin believed him. The first mistake was thinking choosing each other would make things easier. It didn't. If anything, it made everything sharper, more exposed, more fragile, more dangerous. Jimin felt it immediately. The moment their fingers intertwined in that quiet hallway, something shifted in a way that couldn't be undone. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It wasn't something they could hide behind silence or ambiguity. It was real, and reality had consequences. Let go. Jimin's voice was low, almost urgent. Jungkook blinked, startled. What? Someone might see, Jimin said quickly, already pulling his hand back. The warmth disappeared too fast. Jungkook's expression darkened slightly, not with anger, but with something heavier. You just said you chose this, Jungkook said. I did, Jimin replied, his voice tight. That doesn't mean we can be careless. Jungkook let out a slow breath, running his tongue along the inside of his cheek. So we're back to hiding. It's not hiding, Jimin insisted. It's being realistic. Jungkook gave a quiet, almost humorless laugh. Right. Jimin frowned. Why are you reacting like that? Because it feels like nothing's actually changed, Jungkook said, his voice calm but edged. We just said it out loud, but everything else is the same. That's not true, Jimin said, though his tone lacked conviction. Then what's different? Jungkook asked. Jimin hesitated. Again, Jungkook noticed. Of course he did. That's what I thought, Jungkook muttered, looking away. Stop doing that, Jimin said, frustration creeping back in. Stop acting like I'm not trying. I know you're trying, Jungkook replied. I just don't know what you're trying to achieve. Jimin exhaled sharply. I'm trying to protect us. From what? Jungkook asked. From everything, Jimin snapped. From people finding out, from rumors, from pressure. From being real, Jungkook interrupted. Jimin froze. That's not what I said. It's what it sounds like, Jungkook replied. Jimin shook his head, his chest tightening again. You're twisting my words. No, I'm listening to them, Jungkook said. The tension surged again, fast and familiar. Jimin looked around quickly, lowering his voice. Not here. Then where? Jungkook challenged quietly. Because every time we try to talk, you find a reason to shut it down. That's not fair, Jimin said, his voice softer now but strained. I need boundaries. Jungkook let out a quiet breath. And where do I fit in those boundaries? The question caught Jimin off guard. You fit, Jimin said quickly. Do I? Jungkook pressed. Or am I just something you deal with when it's convenient? Jimin's eyes widened. That's not true. Then stop making it feel like it is, Jungkook said, his voice sharper now. Jimin stepped closer, his frustration finally breaking through fully. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't feel the pressure of this? I never said you didn't, Jungkook replied, but you're acting like I don't feel it either. Jimin faltered. I do, Jungkook continued, his voice dropping. I just don't let it control every decision I make. And maybe you should, Jimin shot back. Maybe if you thought about it more, you'd understand why I'm being careful. Jungkook laughed, but it wasn't amused. Careful or scared? Jimin clenched his fists. What's wrong with being scared? Nothing, Jungkook said, unless it's the only thing getting you. Jimin's chest tightened painfully. That's not fair, he repeated, quieter now. Jungkook looked at him, his expression softening just slightly, but not enough. Then prove it, Jungkook said. Jimin blinked. How? Jungkook hesitated, then stepped closer again, lowering his voice. Stop pulling away every time it feels real. The words hit deeper than expected. Jimin swallowed hard. I'm not pulling away, he said, but it sounded weaker now. You just let go of my hand like it meant nothing, Jungkook pointed out. It didn't mean nothing, Jimin said quickly. Then act like it means something. Jimin stared at him, his thoughts racing again. Because Jungkook wasn't wrong. And that was the problem. I don't know how to do this your way, Jimin admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook shook his head. It's not about my way. Then what is it about? It's about us actually acting like this is real, Jungkook said. Jimin let out a shaky breath. It is real. Then why does it feel like you're still trying to hide it from yourself? That question hit harder than anything else. Jimin didn't have an answer. And his silence said everything. Jungkook's shoulders dropped slightly, like he had expected it. Okay, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin frowned. Okay. Jungkook nodded faintly. I get it now. Jimin's chest tightened. Get what? Jungkook met his eyes, his expression calm but distant. You're not ready for something real, he said. Jimin felt something crack inside him. That's not true. It is, Jungkook replied. You just don't want to admit it. Jimin shook his head immediately. No, I chose this, I chose you. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. Then, why does it feel like I'm still standing here alone? The words cut deep. Jimin stepped forward again, his voice more desperate now. You're not alone. Then stop making me feel like I am, Jungkook said. The tension stretched thin, both of them standing on the edge of something that could either break them or pull them closer. Before Jimin could respond, a voice cut through the moment. Hey, we're looking for you guys. Both of them turned sharply. One of the staff members stood at the end of the hallway, glancing between them with mild curiosity. Jimin stepped back immediately, the distance snapping into place like a reflex. Jungkook noticed. Of course he did. The staff member smiled casually. Everyone's heading out, you coming? Yeah, Jimin replied quickly, his voice steady again, composed. Too composed. Jungkook didn't say anything. He just watched. And something in his expression shifted again. Something colder. Coming, Jungkook said shortly, already turning away. Jimin's chest tightened. He reached out instinctively, Jungkook. But Jungkook didn't stop. Didn't turn. Didn't wait. And that hurt more than any argument. Jimin stood there for a moment, frozen, before forcing himself to follow. The car ride back was worse than the one before. No arguments. No tension-filled words. Just silence. But this silence was different. It wasn't heavy with unsaid things. It was empty. And emptiness was far more dangerous. Jimin glanced at Jungkook, who was staring straight ahead, his expression unreadable, his hands steady on the wheel. Too steady. You're quiet, Jimin said finally. Jungkook didn't look at him. You wanted space. That's not what I meant, Jimin replied. Jungkook shrugged slightly. Seems like it. Jimin frowned. Can you stop doing that? Doing what? Acting like you don't care, Jimin said. Jungkook let out a quiet breath. I care. Then act like it. Jungkook finally glanced at him, and the look in his eyes made Jimin's chest tighten. I am, Jungkook said. Jimin blinked. By ignoring me. By not pushing you into something you're clearly not ready for, Jungkook replied. Jimin shook his head. You're not listening to me. I am, Jungkook said. I just don't think you're listening to yourself. Jimin exhaled sharply, frustration building again. Why does everything have to turn into this with you? Because this matters to me, Jungkook said simply. The honesty in his voice made it hard to argue. But Jimin wasn't ready to give in either. It matters to me too, Jimin said. Jungkook nodded faintly, then show it. Jimin clenched his jaw. You keep saying that like I'm not already trying. Trying isn't the same as doing, Jungkook replied. The words landed heavily. Jimin looked away, his chest tight again. The silence returned. But this time, it felt final. When the car stopped, neither of them moved immediately. Jimin stared ahead, his thoughts a mess, his emotions tangled. I don't want to lose you, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. Then don't, Jungkook replied. Jimin swallowed hard. It's not that simple. Jungkook nodded slowly. It never is. Jimin turned to him, his voice softer now. Can we just not fight tonight? Jungkook hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, he said quietly, we can do that. But the distance between them remained. Unspoken, unresolved. And as they stepped out of the car, walking side by side, but not touching, not even brushing shoulders, Jimin felt it again. That unsettling, creeping realization. Choosing each other was only the beginning. And they still had no idea how to survive what came after. The quiet didn't last. It never did with them. By the time they reached the dorm, the silence had already started to feel like pressure building beneath the surface, like something inevitable was waiting to explode. Jimin unlocked the door first, stepping inside without looking back. The familiar space felt strangely unfamiliar now, like it had shifted in subtle ways he couldn't explain. Jungkook followed a few steps behind, closing the door with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. Neither of them spoke. Jimin moved toward the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water just to give himself something to do, something to hold onto. His hands were steady, but only on the outside. Inside, everything felt unstable. You're doing it again. Jungkook's voice cut through the stillness. Jimin paused mid-motion, the glass hovering near his lips. Doing what? Jungkook leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching him, acting like everything's normal. Jimin took a slow sip before setting the glass down. Maybe I just don't want to fight. That's not the same thing, Jungkook replied. Jimin turned to face him, his expression controlled. Then what do you want, Jungkook? Another argument. I want you to stop pretending we're okay when we're clearly not, Jungkook said. Jimin exhaled, tired already. We said we wouldn't fight tonight. Jungkook let out a quiet laugh. We said we'd try. That doesn't mean we ignore what's happening. Jimin's jaw tightened. So what? We just keep going in circles until one of us gives in. Jungkook's gaze sharpened. Why does it have to be about someone giving in? Because that's what it feels like, Jimin snapped. Like you're waiting for me to become someone I'm not. Jungkook pushed off the wall, stepping closer. I'm not asking you to be someone else. It feels like it, Jimin shot back. Then you're not listening to me, Jungkook said. And you're not listening to me, Jimin's voice rose, the restraint cracking again. The tension snapped back into place instantly, thick and suffocating. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Then explain it in a way I can understand. Jimin let out a shaky breath. I'm trying to hold on to something stable. And you think this is? Jungkook asked. I think this changes everything, Jimin replied. Jungkook's expression softened slightly, but his voice stayed firm. Maybe everything needs to change. Jimin shook his head. Not like this. Then how? Jungkook pressed. Jimin hesitated. Again. And Jungkook saw it. Something in his posture shifted, tension creeping into his shoulders. There it is, Jungkook muttered. You don't even know what you want. That's not fair, Jimin said, his voice quieter now but strained. Then prove me wrong. Jimin's chest tightened. Why does everything have to be about proving something to you? Because you keep saying things without backing them up, Jungkook replied. Jimin laughed bitterly. And you keep demanding answers I don't have. I'm not demanding perfection, Jungkook said. I'm asking for honesty. I am being honest. Then stop holding back. I'm not holding back, Jimin snapped. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice dropping. Then why does it feel like you are? Jimin froze. Because deep down. Hey knew. Jungkook's gaze locked onto his, intense and unwavering. You say you chose me, but every time it matters, you hesitate. Jimin swallowed hard, because I'm scared. I know, Jungkook said, but fear isn't supposed to be the only thing getting you. Jimin's voice softened, almost pleading, then help me. Jungkook blinked, caught off guard. What? Jimin stepped closer, his defenses finally cracking in a different way. If you want this so badly, then don't just stand there waiting for me to figure it out on my own. Jungkook's expression shifted, something flickering there, surprise, confusion, maybe even hope. You said you wouldn't push me, Jimin continued, his voice trembling slightly, but that doesn't mean you disappear either. Jungkook frowned. I'm not disappearing. It feels like you are, Jimin said. Like you're already pulling away before I even have a chance to catch up. The words hit differently. Jungkook's posture softened, just slightly. I didn't think you wanted me to stay close, Jungkook admitted quietly. Jimin shook his head immediately. I just don't want to be rushed. I'm not trying to rush you, Jungkook said. It feels like it, Jimin replied. Jungkook let out a slow breath, his frustration easing into something more complicated. Then tell me what you need, Jungkook said. Jimin hesitated. But this time, he tried. I need you to understand that this isn't just about us, Jimin said. It's about everything around us too. Jungkook nodded faintly. I get that. Do you? Jimin asked, because it doesn't feel like you do. Jungkook stepped closer again, his voice quieter now. I get that you're scared of what people will think. I get that you're worried about what could go wrong. I get all of that. Jimin watched him carefully. But I also know that none of that changes how I feel, Jungkook added. Jimin's chest tightened again. And it doesn't change how you feel either, Jungkook said softly. Jimin looked away. Because that part was true. I just need you to meet me halfway, Jungkook continued. Jimin frowned. What does that even mean? It means you stop acting like this is something temporary, Jungkook said. Like it's something you can just step away from whenever it gets too real. Jimin's breath hitched slightly. Because I can't do that, Jungkook added. The honesty in his voice made it hard to look away. Jimin swallowed hard. You're asking me to be all in. I'm asking you to stop being halfway out, Jungkook corrected. Jimin felt the weight of those words settle heavily in his chest. I don't know how to be all in, Jimin admitted. Jungkook's expression softened again. Then we figure it out, Jungkook said. Jimin shook his head slightly. You keep saying that like it's easy. It's not easy, Jungkook replied, but it's worth it. Jimin let out a quiet breath, his thoughts spinning again. Say something real, Jungkook said suddenly. Jimin blinked. What? Not something careful, not something safe, Jungkook said. Something real. Jimin hesitated. But Jungkook didn't look away. Didn't give him space to hide this time. So Jimin took a breath. And let go. I'm terrified that if this goes wrong, I'll lose you completely, Jimin said, his voice shaking. And I don't think I could handle that. Jungkook's expression softened immediately. You won't lose me, Jungkook said. You don't know that, Jimin replied. I do, Jungkook insisted. Jimin shook his head. You can't promise that. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice quieter but more certain. Maybe I can't promise everything will be perfect, but I can promise I won't walk away just because it gets hard. Jimin's chest tightened again. Can you promise the same? Jungkook asked. The question lingered. Heavy. Unavoidable. Jimin opened his mouth. And this time, he didn't hesitate. Yes, he said. The word came out steady. Stronger than anything he had said before. Jungkook blinked, surprised. Jimin stepped closer, closing the distance fully now. I can't promise I won't be scared, Jimin continued, and I can't promise I won't mess this up sometimes, but I can promise I won't run. Jungkook stared at him, something shifting again in his expression. Something softer. Something real. That's all I need, Jungkook said quietly. The tension between them changed. Not gone, but different. Less like something pulling them apart. More like something holding them in place. Jimin exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing just slightly. So what now? He asked. Jungkook hesitated for a moment. Then, slowly, he stepped forward, closing the last bit of distance. Not rushed, not forceful, just certain. We start here, Jungkook said. Jimin's breath caught slightly. And this time, when Jungkook reached for him, Jimin didn't pull away. Not even for a second. Because for the first time, he wasn't just choosing Jungkook. He was choosing to stay. The shift was subtle, but it changed everything. Not because the tension disappeared, it didn't, but because for the first time, neither of them tried to escape it. Jimin felt it in the way Jungkook didn't hesitate anymore. In the way his hand found Jimin's wrist again, slower this time, giving him the space to pull away. Jimin didn't. But he also didn't move closer. Not yet. You're thinking again, Jungkook said quietly, watching him too closely. Jimin let out a breath, almost a laugh. I don't think I ever stopped. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. Is that a bad thing? It is when it makes everything feel heavier than it already is, Jimin replied. Jungkook didn't argue. For once, he just looked at him, steady, patient, in a way that felt new. And that unsettled Jimin more than the arguments ever did. You're different right now, Jimin said. Jungkook frowned slightly. Different how? You're not pushing, Jimin answered. Jungkook's lips pressed into a thin line before he spoke. You asked me not to. And you actually listened, Jimin said, almost like he didn't expect it. Jungkook let out a quiet breath. I'm trying to meet you halfway. Jimin's chest tightened at that. Because that was exactly what he had asked for. And now that he was getting it, it felt just as overwhelming. You're making this harder, Jimin muttered. Jungkook blinked, caught off guard. How? Because now I don't have anything to push against, Jimin admitted. Jungkook stared at him for a second. Then he laughed. Not loudly, but genuinely. You're unbelievable, Jungkook said, shaking his head. Jimin huffed slightly. I told you this wasn't simple. No, you told me it was complicated, Jungkook corrected. I just didn't realize you were part of the complication. Jimin rolled his eyes, but there was no real bite in it. The tension shifted again. Still there. Still heavy. But less sharp. Come here, Jungkook said suddenly. Jimin blinked. What? I said come here, Jungkook repeated, his voice softer now. Jimin hesitated. Of course he did. But this time, it didn't last long. He stepped closer. Close enough to feel the warmth between them, close enough that the distance no longer felt like a shield. Jungkook's hand slid from Jimin's wrist to his arm, steady, grounding. See, Jungkook murmured, that wasn't so hard. Jimin let out a quiet breath. Don't get used to it. Jungkook smirked faintly, too late. Jimin was about to respond. But his phone buzzed. The sound cut through the moment like a warning. Both of them froze. Jimin glanced down at the screen, and his expression changed instantly. Jungkook noticed. Who is it? He asked. Jimin hesitated, then turned the phone slightly, enough for Jungkook to see the name. Jungkook's expression darkened almost immediately. Why is he calling you this late? Jungkook asked, his voice sharper now. Jimin swallowed. It's probably nothing. Jungkook didn't look convinced, then answer it. Jimin hesitated again. That hesitation, it didn't go unnoticed. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Jimin. I said it's probably nothing, Jimin repeated, but his voice wasn't steady anymore. Then prove it, Jungkook said. The words hit harder than expected. Jimin stared at him for a second, then back at his phone. The ringing continued. Persistent. Demanding. Finally, he answered. Hello. His voice was calm. Too calm. Jungkook watched him closely, his expression unreadable but tense. Jimin turned slightly away, but not enough. Jungkook could still hear fragments. Yeah, I'm home. Pause. No, it's fine. Another pause. Jimin's expression shifted, subtle but noticeable. Jungkook's chest tightened. What do you mean? Jimin said into the phone, his voice lower now. Jungkook stepped closer without thinking. Trying to catch more. Trying to understand. Jimin's shoulders stiffened slightly. Now, Jimin asked. The word hung heavy. Jungkook's stomach dropped. Another pause. Longer this time. Jimin closed his eyes briefly. Okay, he said quietly. And then, he hung up. Silence fell immediately. But it wasn't the same kind of silence as before. This one was tense. Uncertain. What was that? Jungkook asked. Jimin didn't answer right away. He stared at his phone for a second too long. Jimin. Jimin looked up. And something in his expression made Jungkook's chest tighten. I have to go out, Jimin said. The words landed like a blow. Jungkook blinked, now. Jimin nodded faintly. Jungkook let out a disbelieving breath. You're kidding. It's important, Jimin said. Jungkook laughed, but it was sharp, edged with something darker, more important than this. He gestured between them. Jimin flinched slightly. That's not what I said. It's what it feels like, Jungkook replied. Jimin stepped forward quickly. I'm not choosing anything over you. Then don't go, Jungkook said. The words were simple. Direct. Jimin froze. I can't, he said quietly. Jungkook's expression hardened instantly. Of course you can't. That's not fair. It's exactly fair, Jungkook cut him off, his voice rising again. We just had this whole conversation about you staying, about you choosing this, and the second something else comes up, you're already halfway out the door. That's not what's happening, Jimin snapped. Then explain it to me, Jungkook challenged. Jimin hesitated. And that hesitation, it broke something again. Jungkook shook his head slowly. You see, you kept doing this. Doing what? Leaving things unfinished, Jungkook said. Jimin's chest tightened. I'm not leaving. You are, Jungkook replied. Maybe not physically, but mentally, you already checked out. That's not true, Jimin insisted. Then stay, Jungkook said again. Jimin's breath caught. I can't, he repeated, softer this time. Jungkook looked at him for a long moment. And then, he stepped back. Not angry. Not explosive. Just quiet. Okay, Jungkook said. That word felt worse than any argument. Jimin frowned. Okay. Jungkook nodded faintly. Go. Jimin's chest tightened. Jungkook. I'm serious, Jungkook said, his voice calm but distant. If it's important, then go. Jimin hesitated. Because this didn't feel like permission. It felt like something else. Something final. I'll come back, Jimin said. Jungkook didn't respond. That scared him more than anything. I said I'll come back, Jimin repeated. Jungkook finally looked at him. And the look in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was something colder. Something quieter. I know, Jungkook said. Jimin swallowed hard. Then why does it feel like you don't believe me? Jungkook held his gaze for a second. Then looked away. Because you always do, he said softly. The words hit harder than anything else. Jimin stood there, frozen, his chest tightening painfully. I'm not running this time, Jimin said, his voice breaking slightly. Jungkook nodded faintly. We'll see. That was it. No argument. No fight. Just that. Jimin grabbed his jacket, his movements slower now, more hesitant. He stopped at the door. Turned back. Jungkook was still standing there. Still. Silent. Distant. Don't shut me out, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook didn't answer. And that silence, it followed Jimin all the way out the door. Into the night. Into whatever was waiting for him. And for the first time since he had chosen to stay, Jimin wasn't sure if there would still be something to come back to. The night air felt colder than it should have. Jimin didn't remember the walk, didn't notice the city lights or the distant noise of passing cars. Everything blurred together, his thoughts louder than anything around him. You always do. Jungkook's voice lingered in his mind, quieter now, but heavier. Because it wasn't just something said in frustration. It was something believed. And that made it harder to ignore. Jimin stopped walking. Right in the middle of the sidewalk, breath uneven, chest tight. Was that really who he was? Someone who always left. Someone who chose safety over truth. Someone who came back too late. The realization hit him harder than anything else that night. Because for the first time, he didn't want to be that person anymore. His phone buzzed again in his hand. The same name. The same call. The same pull that had made him walk away. Jimin stared at it. Then, slowly, he declined it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clear. For the first time all night, his thoughts weren't scattered. They were focused. and they all led back to one place. Back to him. Jimin turned around. This time he ran. Not away, but back. The door was still unlocked. The lights still on. Jungkook hadn't moved far. He was sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. Waiting. Or maybe not waiting anymore. Jimin didn't know. But he knew one thing. He couldn't hesitate again. Jungkook. His voice cut through the silence, sharp and breathless. Jungkook looked up. Surprise flickered across his face. Real. Unfiltered. You're back, Jungkook said, almost like he didn't expect it. Jimin stepped closer, still catching his breath. I didn't go. Jungkook frowned slightly. What? I mean, I left, but I didn't go where I was supposed to, Jimin corrected himself quickly. I turned around. Jungkook stood slowly, searching his face like he was trying to understand what had changed. Why, Jungkook asked. The question was simple. But the answer mattered. Jimin swallowed hard. Because you were right, he said. Jungkook stilled. I keep leaving, Jimin continued, his voice steadier now, stronger. Not always physically, but mentally. I keep choosing the safer option instead of the honest one. Jungkook didn't interrupt. Didn't move. He just listened. And tonight, I almost did it again, Jimin admitted. I almost walked away from something that actually matters because it was easier. Jungkook's chest rose slowly with a deep breath. Jimin stepped closer. No hesitation this time. I don't want to do that anymore, Jimin said. The words hung in the air. Clear. Certain. Real. Jungkook's voice was quieter when he spoke again. So what are you saying? Jimin met his eyes. No fear this time. Or maybe the fear was still there. But it wasn't in control anymore. I'm saying I'm choosing this, Jimin said. Not halfway, not when it's convenient, not just when it's easy. Jungkook's breath caught slightly. Jimin took another step closer, closing the space completely. I'm choosing you, he added. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was full. Jungkook searched his face carefully, like he was trying to find any sign of doubt, any trace of hesitation. There wasn't any. Don't say that unless you mean it, Jungkook said softly. I mean it, Jimin replied immediately. No pause. No second guessing. Jungkook exhaled slowly, something in his shoulders finally loosening, something guarded finally breaking open. You came back, Jungkook said, almost to himself. Jimin nodded. I came back. A small, almost disbelieving smile tugged at Jungkook's lips. You never do that, he said. I know, Jimin admitted, but I'm trying to be different. Jungkook stepped closer now, mirroring the distance Jimin had already closed. Not different, Jungkook said quietly, just honest. Jimin smiled faintly, that too. For a moment, neither of them moved. Not because they didn't want to, but because this moment felt too important to rush. Too real. Too long in the making. Jungkook reached out first this time. Not hesitantly. Not carefully. But not rushed either. Certain. His hand found Jimin, again, fingers intertwining like they belonged there. And this time, Jimin didn't pull away. Didn't look around. Didn't overthink. He just held on. I'm still scared, Jimin admitted quietly. Jungkook nodded, so am I. Jimin let out a small breath, something lighter than before. But I think that's okay, Jimin said. Jungkook's gaze softened. Yeah, it is. The fear didn't disappear. The complications didn't vanish. The world outside didn't suddenly become easier. But something shifted. Because for the first time, they weren't fighting against each other. They weren't running from the same thing in opposite directions. They were standing in the same place, facing it together. Jungkook's hand tightened slightly around Jimin's. "Stay," he said. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a plea. It was something in between. Something real. Jimin nodded. "I will." And this time, he meant it. No hesitation. No conditions. Just a choice. A quiet, steady, undeniable choice. Outside, the city kept moving, lights flickering, people passing by, life continuing as it always did. But inside that room, time felt different. Slower. Softer. Like it was giving them space to breathe. To exist. To begin. And maybe that was what unspoken love had always needed. Not silence. Not fear. Not distance. But the courage to finally be heard. And as Jimin leaned closer, resting his forehead lightly against Jungkook's, their hands still intertwined, their breaths finally steady. The story they had been too afraid to tell for so long finally found its voice.